Hi, my name is Paul Offit. I'm talking to you today from the Vaccine Education Center at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. It is Monday, June 22nd, 2026. So what I talk about is a sort of general topic, which is how immunization rates are generally declining among kindergartners. And as a consequence, we're starting to see more outbreaks of vaccine-preventable diseases. Last year in 2025, we saw more cases of measles than we'd seen in more than 30 years. We had 3 deaths from measles, which equaled the total number of deaths from measles over the last 25 years. We had 2 children die of measles, a healthy little 6-year-old and a healthy little 8-year-old girl, both immunized in West Texas. Those were the first child deaths since 2003, more than 20 years ago. We've had more children die of influenza and be hospitalized from influenza and be admitted to the intensive care unit for influenza than we've had really since the last flu pandemic in 2009. And the same thing was true with whooping cough, where we've had states experiencing whooping cough deaths that hadn't experienced whooping cough deaths in years. So why is this? The reason is that immunization rates are declining. Now, there's 2 reasons that they're declining. The first is that we don't fear infectious diseases nearly to the extent we used to. And the second is that there's more misleading information that is readily available than ever before. So we'll start with the first issue, fearing infectious diseases. So my parents were children of the 1920s. At that time, tens of thousands of children died from whooping cough and diphtheria. I was born in the early 1950s, before the polio vaccine was invented. At that time, polio could paralyze as many as 30,000 children a year and kill 1,800. I had measles, I had mumps, I had German measles, I had chickenpox, I had all those childhood diseases, but I was lucky. I was lucky that I wasn't one of the 500 children who died from measles every year, or I was lucky that I wasn't one of the children who got mumps. But at the time when mumps was the most common cause of acquired deafness, every year rubella or chickenpox, when it infected women during pregnancy, would cause as many as 20,000 cases of congenital birth defects, including deafness, blindness, and heart defects. I was lucky. I trained in pediatrics at Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh between 1977 and 1980. We would have these emergency department shifts where you would be 12 hours on and 12 hours off. During my 12-hour shifts, I would perform as many as 2 to 3 spinal taps a night because bacterial meningitis was common. We didn't have at that time vaccines to prevent Haemophilus influenza type B or pneumococcus or meningococcus, and as a consequence, bacterial meningitis was common. Interestingly, most pediatric residents at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia today don't know how to do spinal taps. Usually those spinal taps are done by interventional radiologists. Well, my children were born in the 1990s. It's not only that they don't see these diseases today, they didn't grow up with these diseases. And so therefore, they're really not scared of them. They're sort of imagining that they happen by looking at old black and white pictures, but they don't see these diseases today for the most part. And so the disease becomes less compelling. You didn't have to convince my parents to immunize me against polio. You didn't have to convince me to immunize my children against the diseases, some of which I had. But today, vaccines become a matter of faith. And in essence, vaccines are a victim of their own success. The other issue is that the vaccine misinformation is readily available and well-funded. Groups like the Informed Consent Action Network or Children's Health Defense routinely put out dangerous and misleading information on the internet that scares people unnecessarily about vaccines. But their metric for success, the metric for success of the anti-vaccine movement, is more infections, more hospitalizations, more intensive care unit admissions, and more deaths from something that is completely preventable. And that's not a good metric to have. And I think over the long term, that's why they will become incredibly unpopular when we realize once again how important these vaccines are. Thank you.